And there we go. We're good to go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Songwriting Sunday. Today is all about chords. And as such, today's presentation, dude, where's my chord? Where'd it go? What is it? How do we use it? What are chords? That's what we're addressing today. Now, last week, we kind of just did a very holistic approach. We looked at everything from a very, very high level. We didn't really delve too deep into any sort of musical theory or any sort of applicable tool sets. Here, we're going to be looking at kind of the broad strokes of what chords are, how we can use them, and different ways to utilize them. Now, the key takeaway here is we're going to be going into some techniques, some practices that you can absolutely use in your songwriting. And if you utilize these practices, it will improve your songwriting. The takeaway is that you will not and should not use them all, right? You shouldn't watch this and remember every single thing that I talk about because, we're going to be listing off, endless lists of things. What you should be doing today with this presentation is listening to what I say and listening to what we play and remembering, what sounds interesting to you, right? What chord progressions, what usage strategies, what implementations can you use that you really enjoy and that you could implement into your own songwriting. And as we go through, it'll quickly become clear. You're not going to remember everything we go over, but that's not important. What's important is that you just listen and maybe utilize some of these strategies in the future. Now, of course, like always, we will be writing a song at the end together in our workshop. This week as well, I've added another section. We're actually going to be taking a look at an existing song. This week, we're going to be looking at Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, because I think in this particular case, it really, really demonstrates especially well how different chord progressions can be used in very, very simple ways. So without further ado, let's get started. Dude, where's my chord? All right. So starting off, right, I like to think of music as having, 3 degrees of sound, right? 3 different levels, right? So at your very base level, you have your note, right? So if I were to grab my guitar here, right, grab my pick and play a string, right? You hear that? That's a note. This is a note. Right? It's one sound, one tone. You just play it. They can be at different levels. Right? You can move them around, right? But they're just one sound. Now, at a slightly higher level than that, like we talked about last week, is we have a chord, right? And a chord's like an amplified note. And the reason it's an amplified note is because it adds extra notes on top. Right? So if you know like the classic barbershop quartet, right, like the oh, right? Now they all stack onto each other, right? What they're doing is they're making a chord, right? They're adding harmony. So when they do that, right, they're building off of that bass note that they start on, that oh, and they're adding notes on top to create harmony, to create a much larger sound, right? So when I play a G major chord on guitar, right, what I'm really doing is playing different notes on top of a G note. Right? So this just sounds like a really big G note. Now, a chord at its most absolute basic levels is 3 notes. Okay? What specific notes they add aren't important unless you're like playing piano or something, right? The important thing is there's 3 notes, right? So even though there's 6 strings on my guitar, I'm only playing 3 different notes, and those notes are a G, a B, and a D, right? Right, so even though they're at different levels, they're all the same at different octaves, right? But you can add extra notes to a chord, right? You can make a chord 4, 5, 6. You can make a chord any number of notes, right? However, today we aren't going to worry about that, right? The way I like to think about it, right? When you add extra notes to a chord, that makes the chord it changes the voicing. Right? That's a musical term. It's the voicing, right? It's the execution, right? But we don't need to worry about the execution right now. We're writing a song at a base level, right? We're creating a framework. We don't need to worry about those extra notes on the chord. We can let the musicians worry about that, right? And we can let the instrumentalists worry about that. Whoever's playing guitar or piano on the background, right? They can add whatever extra notes they want for flavor. That's fine, because that's all it is. It's flavor. Now you can, of course, utilize special chords in different ways, but you don't need to. And we won't be touching on that today. That might even be a whole other thing, but that's wholly unnecessary. And in terms of what specific notes we're using, that's melody. We'll worry about that later. It's finicky. I mean, I never really pay attention to what specific note I'm singing or playing, really. All I worry about is the chord. I let the instrumentalists worry about how to voice those chords, and I let the musical theorists, listen to what I play afterwards and dive into what notes and what scales I'm playing and how that works out. I'm not worried about it. All I'm worried about is that second level, that chord, because that's what's going to provide us our framework moving forward. Now, in that basic 3-note chord, there are 2 different categories, right? There are 2 different kinds of 3-note chords. Those are major chords and minor chords, right? So the technical difference between a major chord and a minor chord is that the 3rd note is raised or lowered, okay? So what that really means in practice, right, for anybody who's not as concerned about the theory side of things, what that means in practice is major chords sound happy because they're higher, and minor chords sound sadder because they're lower, right? So if I were to go back to my piano here, right, and my mic won't pick up my voice here, but you'll be able to, I'll explain what I'm doing here. So if I'm back here with the piano, okay, I don't know if you can see me very well, I'm peeking down here, right? If I'm playing a C major chord, I'm playing a C, I'm playing an E, and I'm playing a G. Now all I do to make that into a minor chord as opposed to a major is instead of playing a C, an E, and a G, I take that E and I move it down by a half a tone to an E flat. Right? So when I play that, that's a C minor chord. C major, C minor. Now, those of you with good ears might have heard that those sounded very, very similar, because they are. Once I said, I'm only changing one note just by a tiny little bit, right? So they're very, very, very similar chords, but they do produce a very, very different sound, right? The major was a lot brighter. It sounded a lot happier, whereas the minor was a lot darker. It sounded like something you'd hear in like a haunted mansion. You open the door to a haunted mansion, the boom, that nice like C minor chord, ooh, scary. Right? And you can see here on my slideshow, I've got it represented by, that happy old man in the corner. He's happy, he's by the seaside, he's enjoying life, he's smiling. And you got the sad old man in the corner, right? He's in the dark room, he's got his hand on his head, he's frowning, he's crying, he's sad. Right? But then we got this guy with the trumpet in the middle. See, that guy with the trumpet in the middle, what he's doing is he's turning to the minor chord guy. He's turning to the sad guy, and he's playing some notes. He's saying, hey, you're sad. I'm going to play some sad notes. But then he's turning to the happy guy, and he's playing some happy notes. He's saying, hey, we're all happy. But then he turns back to the sad guy, and he plays some sad notes, right? And what that does is it moves the listener's emotions up and down and create stories. Ludwig von Rudolph. I like the ring of that. I like the sound of that. Yeah, see right there? That's where I'm headed. Musical theory genius. But as I was saying, it's just what he's doing is he's moving back and forth. And that's what music is. He's moving back between the happy and the sad chords and adjusting your emotions, right? And he's putting in a sad chord when he wants you to feel sad, and he's putting in a happy chord when he wants you to feel happy. And that's essentially, at a basic level, what songwriting is. Moving between major and minor chords to move emotions. Now, we can get even more fine-tuned than that. We can say, all right, sure, we have major chords that are happy, and we have minor chords that are sad, but happy and sad aren't the only 2 emotions we have. And even then, there there are, different levels of those and different voicings of those. So then we get into DOMs and subs, okay? Music, at the end of the day, is about bondage. That's just how it is. Joking, not joking. So essentially what we're going to do here, and once again, I'm going to call back to the start when I mentioned that you aren't going to remember everything. Christopher, now following. Thank you for the follow, buddy. Appreciate it. So as I was saying at the start, right, you aren't going to remember all this and you don't have to. So I'm going to go through each of these different types of chords here, right? And I've applied the musical theory terms. Once again, you're not going to expect to remember them. King Henrik, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it, buddy. Once again, you're not going to remember all of that, but I'm going to play them and you're going to hear them, and you're going to hear them in context, and you're going to think, oh, that sounds nice. Oh, I like that effect. Right? I like the effect of the subdominant going to the dominant, right? That specific one, that specific sound is one that I remember that I'm going to take away, right? I like the subdominant going to the dominant. I like that effect. That's something that I can implement in my song because it gave me this particular emotion, and I know I can utilize that to a different effect. So with that out of the way, we're going to start out, and we're going to be playing our root note. So in this case, C major is the easiest key to work with arbitrarily, so we're just going to work with C major. Right, so we're going to start out with a C major chord. Right? A nice C major chord. It's beautiful. That's going to be our root. Right? That's going to be our tonic, our 1. Right? This is chord number 1. This is our most important chord. Everything else we do from this point on is going to be based off of this C. Okay? So this C major is our 1, and we're going to remember that. Okay? Now, next up, we have our 4, our subdominant. And the 3 at the top here are the 3 most important. The ones at the bottom are a bit less important, so we'll go through the 3 at the top first. So going to the 4, the subdominant. And these numbers are literally just representative of the chords moving up in order, right? So if we think chords are alphabetical, okay? So if we're starting on the C major chord, and the subdominant is the 4th, well, what would the 4th chord after C be, right? If we just count. It's C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, okay? So our F chord is going to be our 4 chord in the key of C major, okay? So our F chord, if we play it like this, sounds like that, right? So if we play our C, and then we play our F, that's what they sound like in context with each other. Right? And you'll see that sounds nice, right? That's another major chord. It's nice and happy. But that said, it doesn't sound quite right. You know what? It sounds like, you play the C and that's nice. And we play the F and that's nice. But now we need to go somewhere. And the reason we need to go somewhere is because the F chord is the subdominant. And the subdominant is the chord that adds suspense, right? The subdominant is one of the most important chords that you will be using because that chord is the one that will drive motion forward, right? You could sit here on your root. And you could sit here on your root. And you could sit here on your root all day long, right? It's nice, sure. You can sit here on that, you can stay on that root, but it isn't moving, right? As soon as you add that F, it feels like it needs to go somewhere, and you're excited. You're excited because you know that when that F goes somewhere, it'll go somewhere nice. It'll make you feel good, right? So that moves us on to our dominant, which is often where the chord resolves. And the dominant, I like to think of as the alpha chord, right? This chord, it's not your root, right? So it's not the boss, right? It's not the main chord that you're worried about. But at the same time, it does the job, right? Like it'll tell you it's the boss, right? Sure, C major is the boss. We already talked about that. We're in the key of C major. But if we're going to our dominant, which is our 6 or our 5 rather, so 1 after 4, so therefore F, G, C, D, E, F, G, right, is number 5. Right? Like, listen to that. Look how bright that is. Right? Ooh. Ooh. That's a nice strong chord right there, right? So you can play your C major, then you go to your G. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that that chord isn't the root. You can finish on that chord. You can go to that chord. That chord will do anything you want it to because it's an alpha, all right? Meanwhile, you got your minor median, which is a bit more of a beta, right? That's your 3, right? So that's going to be your E minor, C, D, E minor, right? So that's just a sad chord, right? You're never going to get anything but sadness out of this chord. It's just, right? C. It just, yeah, you're all happy sitting on C. Woo! I'm happy. It's a C. Oh. My day just got ruined, right? Screw you, minor median. You just ruined my day, right? That's what the minor median chord is. That's your sad chord. If you want your listener to feel sad, you jump to that minor median. And you can feel it. You can really feel it if you jump from that C to that minor median. Oh man, that just took a really big downswing. And as much as I joke about, oh, the minor median, it's so sad, it's a really useful chord because of that, right? It really is a clear, it's a clear and instant and effective jump from the top right down to the bottom, right? Now, if the dominant's the alpha and the minor median is the beta, the major median, now that chord's a sigma right there. That chord, it's never going to sound right. It's never going to work in your song. But that's what makes it work, right? That chord, wait till I play this major median for you. This major median's going to blow your mind, okay? This major median is the best tool to make your song sound edgy. Make it sound like, ooh, you know? So if we start on our C, and by the way, the major median is, if E minor is our minor median, the major median is just the major version of the minor median. It's still on 3, right? So instead of an E minor, it'll be an E major, right? Like that, right? So if we start on our C, then we go to our major median. Oh, right? It sounds wrong, but in all the right ways, you know? That's not supposed to be there, but it works, right? So when you're throwing a major median in there, you aren't going to be using it very often, but it can be used to great effect, right? One of my favorite Cage the Elephant songs actually isn't quite a major median, but they do use that E major in the key of C a lot, which is really nice. That nice major median that just gives that nice, it's almost like a Spanish flair. Like it's very, very good. It is used in a lot of Spanish music. But that's just about it. And my camera's covering the last one, which is just the relative minor, which is going to be your 6, right? So if we're counting up, right, and we're in the key of C, right, we go C, D, E, F, G, A is our 6, right? So A minor is going to be our relative minor. And the reason it's called the relative minor is because the direct minor, or I forget the actual term, is so if we have C major, it's like parallel minor or whatever it's called is going to be C minor, right? Which is just the C chord with the third note dropped, like we talked about before. But you're almost never going to play a C minor in the key of C major just because it sounds really bad. And you don't play it on guitar either because it's just a really weird chord, so I'm not even going to bother. I mean, I guess I could. Like if A minor is, yeah. So if like a C major is this, if I tried to throw a C minor in there, like it could work, and like there are songs that do it, but it's not, you aren't going to see it very often. What you are going to see is the relative minor. And the relative minor actually serves a very, very unique purpose, right? Your relative minor is actually very, very similar to your root chord, right? It only differs by one note. And we aren't going to worry about, you know, the specifics of which note differs or whatever. All you need to know is it's very similar to the root, and as such, in some cases, can be used as an alternate root, right? So if the subdominant likes to resolve to the root, right, it can also resolve to the relative minor, which is a lot sadder, right? So if we go C to to F to G to C, C to F to G to A minor. Right? Like it provides a very similar purpose to the root, but just a little bit sadder. As opposed to the minor median, which can't be used as a root. You can't resolve here to the same extent. The relative minor can be resolved too. Now that said, if you want to write a happy song, I don't recommend resolving too often to a minor chord, but you can. Now, with all that technical stuff out of the way, we're actually going to be looking at how this has been used in actual songwriting. So Leonard Cohen, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a Canadian singer-songwriter, absolute legend, and he's actually known mainly for poetry, right? He's a poet first and foremost, and he just puts his poems to music. Now his most popular song, Hallelujah, you'd probably know it from the Jeff Buckley cover, obviously a very, very popular song. But what a lot of people don't know is the first verse of that song is just pure musical theory, right? So if we start out, we'll start out, the song is in the key of C major, and the song starts out on the plane of C, and it's in 6/8, so I'm gonna... So it sits on the C, and then it goes to the relative minor, A minor, right? So it goes 1 to 6, and it does this for a while, right? It sits like this for a while, and it just keeps going back like this. And you remember we talked about, right? So we can sit on the root all day, right? And it just doesn't go anywhere. We can sit on the relative minor all day, and it just doesn't go anywhere, right? So when he's doing this, he's not going anywhere. Right? He's just going to sit there all day, right? And that's, I mean, it feels very serene when you're listening to that. You know, it's just very, the wheels keep moving, we keep moving forward, and it gives that kind of impression. But it isn't interesting, right? It's just sitting there, right? So when he goes into the lyrics, he actually just stays there, right? I heard there was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care. You don't really care for music, do ya? Right? So, the late great Leonard Cohen, yeah, exactly. Lost him too soon. Honestly, I'm a huge Leonard Cohen fan. Hallelujah is a beautiful song, and you'll see why I love it soon. Right, so he goes there and he sits on this. And by the way, there's a great 12-tone video on this song as well that I'd recommend you watch if you want to learn like a really, really deep into this. But he goes like this, and he's sitting on this serene thing. I heard there was a secret chord. What's that secret chord? We're talking about chords today, right? What's that secret chord that he's talking about? He's talking about that secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. So it's a chord that sounds nice, right? It's this chord that sounds nice. And when you think about it, right, like we talked about earlier, right? So right now he's sitting on this root, and he's sitting on this relative minor, which is basically just the root. So he's just sitting on the root forever, right? Which sounds nice, but what you really want is for that to go into something, for that to move somewhere, and that's what gives the satisfaction, right? That's what David could play to please the Lord, is a different chord that works well in this key, that gives a good feeling, right? So when he says, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Right? So he's saying that because he's talking about the secret chord that David could play to please the Lord, but he knows that nobody's really listening to the chord progression because nobody really understands chord progressions, so he's just gonna spoil it and play that chord without even really paying attention. Right? So he's sitting on this C major, going to the A minor, which is this really beautiful thing. This really beautiful thing that he's sitting on. And he's talking about, oh, there's this chord that's going to sound great. You're going to love this chord. Even God would love this chord, right? This chord it's going to blow your mind. This is the secret chord that I'm going to play. But you don't really care, so I'm just going to play it. So as you're listening, you might not even notice, right? I played the secret chord, and that secret chord is a G, right? The G major is the secret chord, right? Right, because you listen. But you don't really care for music, do ya? And like I said, remember that. So when he does this, what he's actually playing is, I heard there was a secret chord, A minor, that C played in it, A minor, the Lord, but F, which is your subdominant, right? And notably, right, you hear this, it has to be resolved, right? It's your fourth that's got to be resolved, but you don't really, and remember I said it could be resolved to the root or the dominant. In this case, the dominant, to give that really strong, nice, full major chord, strong major chord right there. That if he'd set it up with the lyrics and really said, listen now, this chord's really cool, the audience would have been like, oh yeah, this chord's really cool. But he's saying nobody's paying attention to that. Everybody's just listening idly. So I'm just going to play it, right? But you don't really care for music, do ya? Right? So I'm just going to play this great chord, and you're not even going to notice that I'm going to play this chord. All right? And then then Leonard Cohen, he really goes on a freaking tangent, right? He's like, man, these people, they aren't listening to my music. They aren't paying any attention, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just spell it out for them, right? And I don't know if any of you have ever heard or know, like the song "Oh Susanna," right? Oh Susanna, oh don't you? I wrote it with a banjo on my knee, right? So the lyrics to that are actually all oxymorons, right? Lyrics to that make absolutely no sense if you listen to it. It rained so hard the day I left, but the weather, it was dry. The sun so hot, I froze to death. Susanna, don't you cry. Okay? So obviously those lyrics mean nothing. And he wrote that song, right, to prove a point that nobody listens to the lyrics. Nobody pays attention to what they're listening to. They're just listening to the music. Leonard Cohen does the same thing. He proves a point. Instead of writing clever lyrics that are actual poetry, what he does is he just spells out what he's playing on the guitar, right? So when he says, it goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, right? What he's literally doing is he's saying what chords he's playing. When he says it goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, he says it goes like this on the root to the fourth, the F, fourth, to the fifth, the G, the minor fall, the relative minor, to the major lift, back to that big alpha G, the baffled king posing, hallelujah. It goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king posing, hallelujah. And I don't know if you picked up on that. Anybody in chat know what I played there? Right? Listen again. Right? So there's a chord in there that I played that I want to see if you picked up on. It goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. All right, anybody hear that? That big, fat, major median. Composing, hallelujah. And that's what gives it that nice soul, that nice blues, that R&B. The baffled king composing, hallelujah. Now imagine if he just put the minor mediant in there. How boring that would have sounded. How sad that would have sounded. Right? The blues like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing, hallelujah. So it technically works, but it's not nearly as exciting as that baffled king composing, hallelujah. Right? Oh man, that's where it's at, right? So if we're going over it again, right? He literally starts on the root, goes like this to the fourth, the F to the fifth, the G to the minor fall, A minor, the major lift, F again, the baffled king G composing, back to the minor. And notice he resolves on the minor because he wants that chorus to be kind of a little edgy, right? And he still like floats, but instead of floating between the root and the relative minor, he floats between the F which sounds like it needs to resolve. It's this nice high, doo, 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 hallelujah. But then it's more reflective, right? It results in this nice ooh, where you're floating, right? I actually really like this F too, because this F feels like you're floating high up and you're really enjoying life. Ooh, hallelujah. But then it brings you right down to that relative. But you know it can't last forever, right? Because it's the subdominant. It's got to resolve somewhere. And instead of resolving to the C, right, which would be nice and happy, hallelujah, oh hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You instead resolves to the A minor, right? Hallelujah, hallelujah. So he's happy, but he's also reflective. He isn't entirely convinced that this is the safety that he wanted. But if you want to go any deeper, I highly, highly recommend 12 Tones video on it. I'll probably toss a link in the description of this video. But I really love this song, and I think it is truly a fantastic example of how lyrics and chord progressions can go together to create things that are truly unique and beautiful, and how those chord progressions really define the shape of a song, right? Really are the foundation of where your emotion when listening to music comes from, right? So with that said, it's time for the workshop. So we're gonna try our best to incorporate some of these strategies that we talked about into a song. So to start out, does anybody have any ideas? What should we write about? Chat. Just chat out any suggestions. Could be anything, literally anything. I can write about printers, speakers, tripods, just anything that's sitting in front of me on my desk, essentially. Anything. Any suggestions from chat? What have we got here? I'm thinking in the spirit of Leonard Cohen and his Canadian heritage. Why don't we write a song about, I don't know, what's something very Canadian? Right? Textbook Canada. Maple syrup. Let's write a song about maple syrup. That's what we're gonna do. All right. So we're gonna remember those basic strategies that we talked about yesterday when we were writing a song. All right, so first we are going to go back to our trusty blackboard and our chalk, and we're going to write down our blueprint, right? So remember our blueprint. Maple, maple syrup. All right? Something truly Canadian. And we're going to come up with some ideas about maple syrup. All right? What is maple syrup? What makes maple syrup unique? Right? What do we want to talk about in the lyrics? Well, maple syrup is, we already talked about Canada, right? We want this song to be Canadian themed in honor of Leonard Cohen. Right? So we'll say Canada. Right? And actually, might as well just put Leonard Cohen down. Okay, so we have those two ideas in mind. All right. So maple syrup specifically, well, it's sweet. It comes from the maple tree. Right. Well, I'll tell you what. Specifically for me, my grandfather, my nono, on the Italian side, he used to own a camp, which we in Northern Ontario are what we call like cottages or cabins. You know, somewhere you go for the summer. He had a camp, and it was out in the bush, right? And he would go there every summer to make maple syrup, right? He would go out and he'd tap the trees and he'd collect it all and he'd put it in the big pot, right? And he had this like nice little wood stove. Right, and we'd always once a year we'd go down as a family. Right, we'd go down as a family. We'd go down to the camp, We'd spend some time at the river. We'd go through the bush or whatever, and we'd come back, and Nona would have a big stainless steel pot, just full to the brim of maple syrup. And he'd get a little cup for us, and he'd pour it in the cup, and there's no better taste than just pure maple syrup, right, still hot from the stovetop. It's marvelous. It's truly marvelous. But with that said, I want to incorporate some aspect of that memory in there, right? Something a little more personal, right? So let's say camp. Right, we want to talk about camp and the grassroots kind of origin, right? Canadian maple, baby. That's right, King Henrik. Canadian maple. That's what I'm talking about. So we have some ideas, right? So now we're thinking about this song, right? Maple syrup. So maple syrup, happy memories mostly. And once again, also to keep things simple, major key. Okay, we're major key alert. But no, we're writing it in a major. So I'm gonna write major. Okay. I don't think I want a lot of minor, but I mean, there are certain aspects, this is an old memory of mine, right? So we don't do that anymore. Christopher, major key, that's right. So this is an old memory of mine, so maybe a little bit of reflectiveness, a little remorse. Maybe that's an opportunity for a minor chord there. We'll see. We'll figure it out. But more importantly, I think this is going to be, it's a very folksy song, right? So you want to kind of keep it light, keep it consistent. So I think we're going to be relying on that key root chord a lot, right? We're also going to be using the subdominant a lot, I think, because it's a nice, passive, happy chord that once again needs to be resolved. That's where our momentum is going to come from. And I think in most cases, we're going to be resolving from that subdominant to the root, because it's a little softer, a little less aggressive than resolving something like the dominant or the mediant. So, it's guitar time. Let's go. So, keep on trend, right? We'll stay in C major. All right, so to an F, back to a C. Maybe make that shorter. It's too long. So we'll just do one run of it. Okay. So we'll cut it in like half-ish. So like a. I don't know if I want to go there again though. I think I want something different. So if we start on like a C. C to an F, C, G. I kind of like that. I don't want to keep just those four chords though. So I think that's a good place to start. That's a really good starting point. So we have C, F, G, C. Okay? No. C, F, C, G. Okay? So that's our root to our fourth, to our root, to our fifth. Okay? That's where our movement is. So if we play that again, all right, we got, and I think I'll speed it up a bit. Not bad. See, I think what I'd like to do is to have that first progression be what we just talked about, that C, F, C, G. And maybe I want it to be a little, I want to keep the gist of that, right? But I maybe want to make it a little more reflective. So say, hey, we're happy. Now we're still happy, but we're thinking a little bit more about our past and the things that maybe we we miss or that aren't there anymore. But then we're happy again because we know it's still at the end of the day a happy song, right? So if we do something, I don't want to end on the minor chord, but I want to add that kind of minor flair in there. So what we could do is, if we're playing C, F, C, G, right? So I was considering going to a minor chord at the end there, like an E minor or something, but I don't like that because it's too sad, right? So what we could do instead is, we know that we're doing root to fourth, and that fourth resolved to the root. What if instead of resolving to the root, we resolve to like the relative minor, which is very similar to the root, but a little sadder, right? So if we do, and maybe I'll even change up the pattern a little. So that's number one. This is number one. Number two. To the F. To the A minor. See, I like that because it makes it a little different, but still almost the same. And it's almost, you almost don't notice that it's a minor chord as opposed to a major chord, which is what I like. It's very subtle, but it still does add that kind of darker tone to that second part, while the whole thing kind of still feels very positive, right? So if we have this chord progression, we're now going to, right? Let's go right on top of that C there, because sometimes we're going to be changing it up. It's going to be C, F, A minor, G instead of C, F, C, G, right? So I think that's our chord progression for our verse. I'm pretty happy with that. So now we can think about putting lyrics on. Okay, so we want to talk about sweet maple syrup, maple trees, times at camp, Leonard Cohen. I think that I think ideas like Canada and Leonard Cohen, or Leonard Cohen even specifically, is an idea that isn't necessarily something you can translate across the whole song, right? We don't want to mention Leonard Cohen in the chorus because he isn't what the song's about. The song's about maple syrup. We're mentioning Leonard Cohen because in this particular case, he has an attachment because we've talked about him and we've, used his music as kind of our baseline here. So we want to acknowledge that in our song, but we don't need to make that the focal point, right? We don't need to mention Leonard Cohen every 2 seconds, right? So maybe we just confine him to a verse, right? We write a little verse about how our inspiration came from Leonard Cohen for the song, okay? So if we do that, I like the idea of that hallelujah at the end, because that's something that can be applied. Okay, it's Leonard Cohen, but also hallelujah is just a thing that you could say in celebration, right? So I like that hallelujah at the end going into the chorus. That's a really nice effect, I think. So I want to maybe work my lyrics around that, right? So don't take me home. Take me home, don't take me home. Don't take me home, got this old wood stove. Oh, something like that. Don't take me home, don't take me home, got this old wood stove. Burning, burning, burning my troubles away. Late nights at the cabin, nights at the cabin, the syrup we're having. Where are your chords? On the fretboard? Where are they on the fretboard? Oh, I'm just playing the basic iterations of these chords. I'm just writing them down over here. So right now we're playing the C, F, C, G. Sorry, I guess my guitar isn't right in view. Oh, where are the chords? On the fret. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I forgot that was the title. Yeah, no worries. We're talking about that. We're talking about how to find the chords, right? The chord's gonna be in a different place every time, right? You gotta identify. You gotta identify that slot where it is, all right? Don't take me home, got this old wood stove, burning my troubles away. Late nights at the cabin, you know what we're having. This syrup, this syrup, this syrup, this syrup, something a day. So I really like that. Okay, like, don't take me home, got my old wood stove. Troubles are burning away. Late nights at the cabin, we know what we're having. Maple syrup rhymes with away, right? What's the word that rhymes with away that would describe maple syrup? Maple syrup. I've moved on from Leonard Cohen. I actually decided to make this verse about camp because it just kind of came out, which is great. But we can make that for a second verse or whatever. But right now I'm just looking for that rhyme, a rhyme for away. Nights at the... Don't take me home, got this old wood stove, burning my troubles away. Late nights at the cabin, we know what we're having. Maple syrup, maple syrup. A fresh cup of marmalade. Hey, that's syrup. Okay, wait. Nights at the cabin, we know what we're having. Syrup tastes just like marmalade. Yeah, I kind of like that. Syrup tastes sweet as marmalade. Okay, wait, no, I like that because it's a simile, right? It actually provides a context for marmalade. Don't take me home, got this old wood stove, burning my troubles away. Late nights at the cabin, we know what we're having. Syrup tastes sweet as marmalade, they say. But how do we transition that into a chorus? Right? So I like that. I actually really like that verse. It came out pretty well. Nice suggestion with the marmalade. I respect that. That worked perfectly. Anything with more than one syllable, always going to be a good choice. But if we're moving into a chorus, what kind of chord do we want to put there, right? So we have this verse that's nice. It's sitting on the root. It doesn't move around a lot, but it has that nice kind of flavor to it. But what do we want for the verse, right? So if we're sitting kind of statically for the verse, we want something a little more bold, something to stand out for the chorus, right? So there are two ways we can do that, right? We can do that either with minor chords, right? So a minor chord that'll make it sound a little more sad, a little remorseful. That'll kind of draw the listener's attention because it's changing mood. Or we can do that with just very, very strong chords that don't rely on the root a lot, such as our fifth, our G, right? Our dominant, right? Our alpha chord, right? So maybe if we move into the chorus, we can start on the G, right? So on that really strong chord, right? So the nights at the cabin, we know what we're having. Syrup tastes sweet as marmalade. I forgot we finished on the G, which kind of makes it annoying. But if we're already on the G, then we can just use the relative minor for the G, which is the E minor, or the third, right? Immediate. So what we could do, just syrup tastes sweet as marmalade. But yes, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't want to start on that minor. It's too sad. It's way too sad. So I think we can maybe start on the root, but if we move, we got to move away from that root quick, because I think it'll just be boring if we sit on the root for the whole song. Oh, thanks for the follow, Guitarra. Appreciate it. Always nice. And actually, my alert box is working now. It wasn't working before, so I like to see that that's actually functional. But I appreciate it. So if we move on to the chorus, so let's start on the C. But no. Okay, I like that. So actually, if we keep, so a lot of what we can do in music as well is based on symmetry. So if you notice how we replaced that C major with the A minor for a little bit of flavor earlier, right? What we could do here is keep the same pattern of bouncing back and forth between, the C to the fourth to the C to the fifth, right? Bouncing back between the C and a different chord, but instead of using the C, and instead of having that in the first spot, we have the G in the second spot, right? Instead of going C to 4, we go like C to G to 4 to G, or something like that, right? Because this way, it really puts the emphasis on the root, but this way puts the emphasis on the fifth, which is, once again, it's the bolder chord. It's the chord that's going to really define your tone. So if we go into that, lights at the cabin, we know what we're having, syrup tastes sweet as marmalade. I'm talking a lot of theory that you don't have. That's very fair. And that's I mentioned this at the start of the lecture, which you weren't here for. The point that I'm going in here, right? I'm using these theory terms, but the theory terms aren't important. What's important is the emotion that we're putting in, right? So the theory is, the voicing, how you use it on an instrument. That's not important. You don't need to know the subdominant, the dominant, right? The point is you're going to hear this and you're going to say, okay, the subdominant's what we use. That adds suspense, right? The subdominant needs to be resolved. So I'm going to remember the fourth, the F, needs to be resolved, right? So the point is, don't worry too much about the theory. The theory isn't going to get you far. The theory isn't going to be what's the important part. What's important is the emotions that we're conveying with the theory. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but what's important is the trail we take. From an emotional standpoint, right? So we want to resolve, we want to be happy, so we use major chords. We want to be sad, we use minor chords, etc., etc. But anyway, so if we're sitting on the C, it's at the cabin, we know what we're having, syrup tastes sweet as marmalade. Don't you know that I won't do? Okay, I like that. I like that chord progression. It's a lot brighter. Once again, because we're sitting on that G, which is that strong chord that we talked about, that alpha chord that really is going to make your song, make that part of your song sound a lot more unique, sound a lot different than the homey kind of root note that we've been sitting on for the verse. That we wanted to sound a little more folksy, a little more quaint, a little happier, right? So now we just need lyrics. Now we just need the lyrics and the melody, right? And that's what'll come. Okay, so what happened? We talked about camp. We talked about sweet as marmalade, right? So we need to do the maple tree, and we need to talk about Canada. Those are big points, right? Leonard Cohen would be in the second verse. We bookmarked that. We aren't going to be writing that today, but we'll keep that in mind. That would be what we would execute there. But for the verse, we want to talk about the big bullet points, the big strong words, right? So we want to talk about that Canada. We want to talk about that maple tree, okay? So if we're sitting on our C, nights at the cabin, we know what we're having, syrup tastes sweet as marmalade. That maple tree keeps on pouring at Canada. Maple tree keeps on pouring. So yeah, maple tree keeps on pouring, right? The syrup keeps pouring out of it. So, well, actually that's step 1. So what's step 2 of maple syrup? Well, you collect it, you put it on the stove. So the maple tree keeps on pouring, and my folks. The maple tree keeps on pouring down a can. The maple tree keeps on pouring down a can, but it never gets boring. Don't you tell me. Where we could go next? Where could we go next? So I like that. Maple tree keeps on pouring. I don't like that G. I actually don't even like that G. I think we need something else. Maple tree keeps on pouring, and that never gets so boring. Maple tree keeps on pouring, and that syrup don't get no boring. So actually, I'm going to change that all up. So I'm going to start on the A minor. I'm going to do exactly what I said I wasn't going to do and start on a minor. Right? Then go to the subdominant, the happy subdominant. That needs to be resolved. Back to the root. But then it finishes on the dominant, right? The maple tree keeps on pouring, and the life keeps. Wait. Because while that maple tree keeps on pouring, life never gets boring. Or something like that. I really like that. So while it keeps on pouring, while we have maple syrup, we're happy, right? So actually, chat, do we have any rhymes for boring even? Or for pouring? That might work. So that the maple tree keeps on pouring. So while that maple tree keeps on pouring, life will never be so boring. Canada, the great white north is calling. That maple tree. The maple tree keeps on pouring. Life never gets so boring. So the but you know what? I don't want to finish on that route, and I just came up with the best line. I just came up with the best line to finish it off. A nice, juicy finish, okay? So the maple tree keeps on pouring. So while that maple tree keeps on pouring, life could never be so boring. So da 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 da. Cause the great white north is calling me. And then we resolve to the root. Because I don't want to finish on this bold thing, right? Because we want the song to actually have a nice satisfying end. And maybe if I was going into the second verse, I might stick on this. And then just reset on the second verse. Right? I might just reset on the second verse, but in this case, we want to actually have a resolving finish, and I think I like those lyrics. The great white north is calling to me, right? Having that extra rhyme. Pouring, snoring, scoring, touring, warning, morning. Well, we already got pouring, so that's out of the way. The syrup keeps warning. You know what? Honestly, I think I like boring. I think boring works. You like morning. Morning does work. And I really like the idea of we could put morning and have that as like it's going all night, right? So like because it just implies the passage of time, right, till morning, right? It implies like a full day. So while the maple tree keeps on pouring, something keeps going till morning. Yeah, that could really work. While the maple tree keeps on pouring. Maple tree keeps on pouring from... Actually, you know what? I'm going to change it because I actually like this even better, right? This song is about maple syrup. Okay? So it's important to keep things in perspective, right? So while I'm saying, while the maple tree keeps on pouring, you know, life couldn't be so boring. You know, we're talking about these grand things of life. Life does not revolve around maple syrup, right? So if we're keeping it in check, maybe we tone it down a bit, right? So maybe we say, the maple tree keeps on pouring from dawn, day, dusk till morning, right? Get some wordplay in there. Toss some words out there, right? Say, hey, the maple tree pours and it does not stop pouring. Maple tree keeps on pouring from dawn, day, dusk till morning. You know, you're listing them off. It doesn't matter when, that maple tree is going to pour. It's reliable. We are getting that maple syrup, and that's that, right? So the maple tree keeps on pouring. Maple tree keeps on pouring from dawn, day, dusk till morning. And actually, frankly, we could even put pouring later. We can stretch the rhyme on calling. Calling could rhyme with any of them. The ain is the important part. The o, less so, right? So the while the maple tree will keep on pouring from dawn, day, dusk until morning. This life will never get so boring, 'cause the great white north is calling to me. Now I forget the verse. I forget how our verse went. I know the chord. It's C, F, C, G to C, F, A minor, G. But... Don't take me home. Something like that. Oh. Don't take me home. I got my old woods. Don't take me home. I got my old wood stove. Late nights at the cabin, we know what we're having. Syrup tastes sweet as marmalade. Don't take me home, got my old wood stove, burning my troubles away. Late nights at the cabin, we know what we're having. Syrup tastes sweet as marmalade. I like that. I really like that. You know, that works. That works. That's the verse and the chorus right there, baby. So let's just remind ourselves of the chorus, right? And it helps to cement it. Sing the Italian national anthem, please. Good stuff, my man. I do not know the Italian national anthem, I'll be perfectly honest with you. But I can sing our maple syrup song. If that makes any consolation. So wait, how does that chorus go again? I literally just wrote it a second ago. I hate that. I hate when you write something that just slips out of your head. Yeah, tears. I know. It's a shame. I'm Italian. I don't even know our national anthem. What can I do, eh? Drink. Okay, that's it. That's it. I remember. Take me home, got my old wood stove, burning my troubles away. Late nights at the cabin, we know what we're having. Syrup tastes sweet as marmalade. Maple tree keeps on pouring, but while the maple tree keeps on pouring, from dawn to dusk until morning, the life can never be so boring. While the great night north is calling to me. Maple syrup, baby. Maple syrup, baby. And I mean, I'm vaguely recognize that. I'm pretty sure I just ripped that off of somebody. Not entirely, but I mean, that's what all music is. But, you know, it could be refined, could be changed, could be adjusted a little bit, and obviously needs a second verse, needs a bridge, very rough around the edges. But I think that, you know, demonstrates, right? We have our root chord, we have our subdominant, and that subdominant resolves in different places to either the roots or to the relative minor, right? We utilize the dominant to create a more catchy and engaging chorus, right? And yeah, overall, I think that turned out to be pretty much what I intended it to be, right? We utilize the chords effectively to create a tone and a sound that fit the lyrics and the tone that we wanted to establish at the start. And more or less, I think that worked out pretty well. So, as always, if you come up with some lyrics for a second verse, we mentioned maybe incorporating Leonard Cohen into there somehow. Feel free to do that. Feel free to not do that. But if you want to leave them in the comments of the video, I will happily perform them at the start of next week's Songwriting Sunday, provided they aren't too offensive. I do draw a line somewhere. No, nothing racist, nothing sexist, nothing like that. But, you know, I'll say penis. That's fine. Apart from that, thanks for watching, everybody. We actually had a really nice turnout today. Four people. That's not too bad at all. That's better than last week. So that's great. Glad you all can make it out. And I will see you all next week. This has been a lot of fun. Get you in the vid. You're in the vid, baby. Hi. You didn't even say hi right. Come on, my man. If you're gonna say hi, YouTube, at least say it right. You know. We love you, Rude Dog. Oh, thank you. It's over. Yeah, I know it's over already. I shoot for about an hour. But we're doing this every week. You know, I gotta limit myself to a little bit. But I appreciate you all stopping by. I really appreciate it. We'll be back next week, 7 o'clock EST, Songwriting Sunday. This will be up on the YouTube. Probably do an edited one as well. Still haven't done the first edited one. I'm about halfway done that, so that'll be up later this week, hopefully. But thank you for watching. We will be back next week. I'll probably be back tomorrow just for video games or whatever, just regular programming. But thank you for watching, and we will be back. Have a good one.